Alrighty, welcome to today's show. I'm your host, Nigel's Canvas, and today we have a special guest. This is an individual who not only has been in the corporate space, particularly in sales, but is also an entrepreneur, an author, a keynote speaker, and a plethora of many other things. We have Miss Devika Brij Maurice. We would love for you to introduce yourself and welcome to today's show.
Hey everyone. Well, thanks for having me, Nigel. I
Of
was
course.
honored when you reached out to me to share some thoughts and insights. But Devika Brij Maurice, CEO, founder of Bridge the Gap Consulting, author of Thrive in Color. And before starting Bridge the Gap, which is a global talent and leadership development firm, we partner with companies like Google and Samsung and Visa, a bunch of really awesome partners. But before I started Bridge the Gap, I worked in tech, I worked in sales at companies like Google, LinkedIn, and others.
Wow. Wow. And I want to thank you personally before we kick off this show for joining. I know your time is very valuable. You mentioned some really important places and you've been in a spot, through and through where a lot of folks want to go and then transitioning on the other side. And so maybe to kick off today's conversation today, the job market is super tough. Folks are getting laid off at a high rate, particularly people of color have been targeted and finding themselves on the other side of being unemployed. Not even a question more. What are your thoughts right now of this job market? Have you seen this before? Like, what are your thoughts? Or should we ring the panic bells? What are you thinking?
Don't ring the panic bells. That's the first part, right? Like, I, I know sometimes to people it probably sounds a bit fluffy, but I truly believe that in layoffs and these kind of situations that might shake your world a bit, there's always something better on the other side if we figure out that transition period. And I do have some kind of tricks and tips to help with finding like that next play or that next role, whatever that looks like for you. So no panic bells,
Nice.
but Uh, I understand the panic around it. Your livelihood matters. Your ability to, provide for your family matters. So I don't want to, I don't want to say it's like a light thing, but I also want you just to consider that yes, layoffs are happening. Yes, it's the impact of our economy. There's a lot of transition in the workforce the last several years. And at the same time, there are still a lot of great opportunities. There are companies that are hiring, the companies that you likely want to be a part of. But I think how you actually get in front of those opportunities has changed significantly. So it can't just be,
For sure.
spending your whole day applying for roles and submitting your resume. Now the game has changed. You really have to lean into your network. You have to make direct contact and you have to advocate for yourself, highlighting your contributions and achievements to get you in that door. So the way, I guess job hunting or finding your next opportunity has definitely evolved.
For sure. And I'm based in Miami and you're in Atlanta, correct?
Yes, Atlanta now,
Okay.
but from Toronto, grew up in the Bay, so I've been everywhere.
Perfect. I put this question on my LinkedIn and it caused a bit of controversy. I want to get your take. I said that, I could be wrong. If you live in a big city and you are at month 7, 8, 9, 10, with not a lot of success in the job market, you may not want it bad enough. And I said that as in there's a lot of in-person opportunities. And of course, with a grain of salt, there's always situations, etc. But from a big city standpoint, the Bay, Toronto, New York, Atlanta, what should people do or what should they consider if you live in some of these bigger metropolitan areas in terms of networking, finding jobs, et cetera?
Yeah. So when you do live in a bigger city, there tends to be more of those networking opportunities, right? There are several events. There's recruiting events. There's a bunch of resources and access points that you have compared to folks that don't even have access to those major cities in which these events are taking place. So yes, you're at an advantage.
Mhm.
And and I think I have to just say people are burnt out as well though, right? So
Yeah,
it's not even sometimes a matter of like not wanting it enough.
sure.
I think the last few years have like taken people out. Like
Tired, tired.
mentally, they're tired. And if you've experienced a layoff and we don't know what the implications of that layoff was it a toxic work environment? Had they been dealing with that for the last,
Mm,
several years or what have you? So there's all these nuances to consider. But I do think that as layoffs are happening, as transition is happening, there are still really great opportunities if you apply strategy to them. And I think the biggest gap that I'm seeing right now, or like I just said, right, people are simply relying on going online,
Yeah.
searching the companies that they wanna work for and submitting resumes and hoping that it's seen, but that's not the way to land your next opportunity anymore. It does take more intention, it takes more curation, but generally from what I've seen, and I've helped, quite a few people land their next opportunity, especially this last year, they're generally more happy because of that connection point that they had from the beginning versus submitting a resume and just being one of several applicants that might end up with the job. There's a little bit of more of that intentionality and that connection to purpose that happens when you move with strategy, which is, people are being forced into that now. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's not as easy like back in the day. Maybe if you were a good candidate, you put in a few applications, you get a call back, and it should be okay, maybe in a few weeks, couple of months. Now, on
absolutely.
average, I don't know the statistics, but I'm seeing anywhere from 6 to 8 months, strong, college educated, and that's scary, right? Especially when I'm thinking about my underrepresented folks. I saw a
Yeah.
study saying that Black women specifically at a higher percentage unemployed. When you hear those
Mhm.
things, I know we say no panic bells, but what should people be doing or considering whether you're A, getting a job, or maybe B, you have one and you want to make sure that you're okay if something happens?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. One, you have to make sure your LinkedIn profile is right.
Mm,
So, some folks are leveraging LinkedIn as an option, but I can
mm,
tell you that 85% of recruiters are actively using LinkedIn to find talent like you. So, if your profile is not up to date, if you're not even leveraging your profile, if you're not posting content that, resonates with you, if you're not leading the narrative of your skills and strengths and your expertise, then you're already being left behind.
yeah.
So that's LinkedIn is not an option anymore. It's a must have. The other part of that, and I talk about LinkedIn a lot because I worked there for so long, so it's almost natural. But another piece of this is have some solid recommendations. So your profile has the
Mm,
opportunity to tap into your network. It could be current colleagues, it could be past colleagues, previous managers, mentors, whatever that looks like for you. Whoever has line of sight into your skills and strengths, your areas of expertise, how you are to work with, get them to write you a LinkedIn recommendation because that already builds trust and credibility from the jump versus getting further in the interview process and it's taking longer because they have to make sure that not only are you qualified, but are you somebody that is going to be a person of integrity? Are you going to be someone that is going to do the job well? When you have referrals and recommendations already on your profile, it eliminates that layer of that trust factor that still needs to be cultivated in the recruiting process. And then
mm,
lastly, you have to tap into your network. So if you are somebody that's in the market right now, whether you've been laid off, you're looking for your next job, or maybe you're just ready to move on to your next thing, but you're scared, hey, if I move, how will that work out for me? Tap into your network more than you do into blind applications because
mm,
your network can advocate for you. And remember, your network, when they are referring you, are being incentivized most of the time
for
internally.
sure.
So
Hmm.
they want to refer you as long as you're someone that's, credible of being referred, right? So go on your LinkedIn, go through your phone book, go through your email, however, you have a glance at your networks and see where they're at today. A lot of people have made a lot of moves, even for me. I mean, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, but sometimes I don't even realize, hey, my friend works at that company and I've been trying to, pitch to them. Let me get the introduction. But you don't know unless you take the time to scan your network, see where
Mm,
people are at, and then just lead with transparency. I'm looking for my next role. I've been laid off. I'm looking for my
right.
next opportunity and tell them, why that company. Well, tell them the roles that you're interested in. Send them the job links. Like give them everything that they need to facilitate a warm introduction. And that's going to help you way more than blindly applying for roles.
Percent. And to your point, I always say conversations over applications. I'm a big sports
Yes.
guy. It's almost like we're in the league in the NBA. We're all players,
Yeah.
and you want to post your highlights, post your wins, post your successes. But we're all in the league. We're all professionals to an extent, and you can reach out to learn from other players, teams, coaches, etc. Now, to this point, I've gotten this pushback myself, and I'm a
Mhm.
extrovert. I'm in sales. Obviously, you have had a long, successful career in sales as well. What about the introverts? What about the people who say, I don't want to post, I don't want to use LinkedIn, I don't want to show anything, I don't want to network, or I don't know how? Like, what do you say to that person? Not obviously go do it, but maybe speaking to that inner person or emotional awareness on how some different things that they can do because it may not be as natural for them.
Yeah. So you have to one realize how you best network, right? So if you're someone that, I hear this personality difference argument all the time. I'm an introvert. Well, if you're an introvert and you keep just saying, well, I'm an introvert, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that, you're always going to be left behind. So think
Yeah.
about how you build relationships most effectively. If it's going into a networking event by yourself and that's intimidating to you, well, invite a few friends along, invite a few
Mm,
peers along, right? If you know you just don't like those environments, it doesn't feel organic, well, then you have to get really good at introducing yourself on LinkedIn and sending those DMs and getting over the fear factor of rejection. And what if they don't respond? But there has to be something there where you're able to build connections consistently. And the other part of that is um, being thoughtful of your worth.
yeah.
A lot of people are willing to help you. A lot of people are willing to connect with you, really willing to have a conversation, but it's in your approach, right? Who are you? What are you known for? What do you
Mm,
need? What are your questions? What is the time allocation of what you're asking for? So when you really equip people with the information, they can make an educated decision on if they're willing to give you that 15 or 20-minute coffee chat or talk to you about that specific role. But there has to be intention in that. The unfortunate part is these things aren't really taught, and it's not the way society operates any longer. We're
yeah.
very transactional. We're very
Mhm.
selfish in a way. But as you're networking and building connections with new people or even revisiting past connections, it has to be more about the other person and making sure that you're equipping them with what they need to help you. So I've highlighted all of this in my book, Thrive in Color,
Yes.
that helps people understand how to own your narrative, how
Mhm.
to, advocate for yourself and then advocate for your needs as well, if that's been a challenge. And I can tell you, if you're feeling challenged with that, you're in good company because most people do.
100%. And you shouted out your book. I want to talk about it. Thrive in Color. It's been on the market. But for those that maybe are not as familiar, could you maybe just give us the summary synopsis or maybe some really strong points in terms of your perspective when it comes to thriving in color?
Yeah. So, Thrive in Color really is a book that encapsulates all of the work I've done globally with major organizations. So, like I've said, I've worked with Nike, I've worked with Google, I've worked with Meta, Visa, a lot of these great companies. But I kept getting the question of, well, Davika, how do we work with you?
Mm,
And so 100% of my work is, with organizations and their employees. So I thought to myself, I need to put something together for the general public, for them to understand how to advocate for themselves most effectively, how to negotiate on your terms, how to build a brand that lasts and helps you transition and gain access to growth opportunities. So all of those tangible tools that you can, execute on today is included in Thrive in Color. It is written, I wrote it with a heart for underrepresented talent because, Nigel, there's not a lot in the market that actually gives you the how to and the context to why this matters. But what I'm realizing now that the book is making its waves across corporate, organizations and ERGs and all the good stuff is that people are learning together, but
yes.
they're understanding for the first time that they're not in this alone, that
No.
their challenges are not just them, it's their peers. It might even be their leaders. So it's giving them a different way to think about not only professional development, but just who they are as a human and how they operate in the workplace.
I love that. And I can 100% relate. I started my career at Meta. And I felt that imposter syndrome. I've coached people who, not all they don't know how to stand up for themselves. Even myself, just personally, like not always knowing how to showcase your wins. It doesn't always feel natural. It feels, especially if you're somebody that's really genuine, you kind of
Yeah.
have a lot of friends, you operate off a certain moral code. When you get into the corporate space, it
Mhm.
becomes a bit unnatural to kind of like show off or, to highlight or maybe gloat. But you understand maybe the folks that are doing like playing the game a bit more visible, maybe get promoted faster. There's like a code that I'm still learning to this day. Like, can you talk more about maybe some things that I guess aren't necessarily taught, but some just kind of controversial or just different tips that, folks, my audience can do when it comes to the corporate space that maybe they don't know?
Yeah. So self advocacy is a challenge for most professionals.
Hmm.
If you are of underrepresented backgrounds, it probably feels a bit more paralyzing because of different nuances, right? This is the way that I help people understand the severity of self advocacy, though. Think of any company, right? When they are making decisions on which products they're doubling down on,
Mm,
which products they're sunsetting, where the money is going, what teams are being, trimmed down versus which teams are being invested in.
right.
All of that takes data, right? Executives, board members, all of that. They're looking at the data to make these decisions. So it is no different when it comes to your career and your growth opportunities and what you would like to do and being able to influence those decision makers. It comes down to data.
Mm,
So I understand that self advocacy feels uncomfortable. I teach it and it feels uncomfortable for me. But I understand and realize that if I am not sharing the data around my expertise, the data of my contributions, the data of my accomplishments, then nobody's going to do that for me,
yeah.
right? So we recognize that it's a challenge. We recognize it feels uncomfortable. And at the same time, how do you push past that with actual tangible tools and speaking the language of decision makers and doing it in a way that is data driven versus bragging driven, which that's the fear most people have is, am I coming across as conceited or am I coming across as bragging? But there is an art in how it's done consistently to support your growth and development goals.
And the thing is, the folks that know how to do it well, I don't know, but it seems like they don't have that thought. They just do it. And that's the goal to to get there. It's like also
Well,
culturally we come from a space where it's like you want to do good, but you maybe don't want to shine and blast everyone else. Or even if you're looking at the sports or athletics world, it's like, hey, if I'm good, you guys can watch me play. I don't need to tell you, right? You can just see me play. And we translate that to corporate like, hey, I'm making my calls, I'm hitting my numbers.
yeah.
However, when it's time to pick, who gets the next promotion or who's highlighted at the monthly stand up, they're not seeing I just scored 40 points. Like, how are you picking somebody that scored 15? But there's
Yeah.
other things that, and again still learning this, and it's kind of like a new language. Honestly, corporate is a new language. It's a new space and
Mhm.
culture.
Don't you notice, though, I feel like everybody listening to this right now can resonate with in the workplace, the people getting promoted are not necessarily the best performers. They're
No.
not the best people at their job. You might actually be thinking, it might be you, but you might be thinking about other people who are doing more work or performing better. But you might be thinking, well, why am I being passed up for these promotion or growth opportunities? Right. But those people who might not be great. They might be performing in a mediocre way. They have mastered how to elevate the work that they are doing. And
Mhm.
that's the gap is you can't just be the best performer in the room and hope and pray that people will notice. Because I can guarantee you that is a very small number of leaders who are paying attention in that way. And we have to
Mm,
empathize with that because leaders
true.
and decision makers, they have their own careers. They
Right.
have their families. They might be caretakers. They might have other things going on. They're not sitting there being like, Nigel, what did you do today? Okay, let me write it down. Let me remember it for your performance review. Let me elevate that with the senior leadership team. No, it is up to you to drive your career forward. It is up to you to make your career goals known. It is up to you to elevate your accomplishments and contributions. And I'm not saying it feels easy all the time, but it's still your responsibility. And it's the responsibility of the leaders to come alongside you and help you cross that bridge. So once both of these parties can come together, that's where true growth and career development happens. But everybody has to own their part. And
Right.
it's not good enough anymore to say, well, that feels uncomfortable, or I'm an introvert, or, I'm an extrovert and I don't want to come across as cocky. Whatever it looks like for you, you have to take ownership and authority of your part because no one's going to do it for you.
That's so true. Truly have to thrive and move forward. And I know we're coming up on time. A couple last questions. This is a good one.
Mhm.
Hopefully you've never gotten this before. It's an original. It just popped in my head. It's twofold. One, do you believe that maybe because a lot of my audience is fresh coming out of college,
Mhm.
maybe they're at their second, third job. Do you believe that the younger person with less family responsibilities should be doing more work at a company? And then part two, how do you navigate that when it feels like, and I'm speaking for myself, right? I'm single, no kids, and I know you've grown through your career, married, etc. But like,
Yeah.
how do you navigate that when, it seems like people get a pass, I got to go pick up the kids, or hubby needs this, or my wife needs that, and you don't necessarily have that family dynamic play, and they may see it as you're more available, etc. Like, have you dealt with that or seen that? What are your thoughts there?
I mean, personally, right, when I was in the thick of my sales career, I was what, like in my like mid-20s to like early 30s and wasn't married, wasn't, seeing anybody. So it's like I would spend a lot of time at work. But
For
the
sure.
way that I saw it wasn't that I was picking up the slack for people. That was not it at all. I just knew that in that season of my life,
Right.
I had more capacity to learn. I had more capacity to put myself in positions where I could learn on the job. I had people that could mentor me. I just did more, but it was for my own growth, not
Right.
necessarily to take on more work or take on more responsibilities because I had the capacity. It was mostly like, what can I do now? I mean, even now, as a woman happily married and working on, having children, even in marriage, I'm like, how do I maximize this time with my husband now? How do we travel and do all the things? So you just have to ask yourself, like, what are your boundaries? What are your goals? If you are in a place where you're feeling like you're overworked, you're tired, that's a conversation to have. If you feel like you're taking a lot of the slack from people, that's a conversation to have and address. But if you're in a place of like, hey, this is my time to shine and grow and be selfish, like go get in there, like take an initiative, work with mentors, spend time taking courses and learning. Like this is a time for your own growth, and that's a gift. So you just gotta think about where you are, what season you're in, and make sure that you are creating capacity for what the life that you want.
For sure. The key word you said there is boundaries. And again, there's no subject or school or lessons when it comes to setting boundaries in life,
Yeah.
relationships, and of course in the corporate space. Last question for you. Take it or leave it. In today's economy, is it better to take the risk? Job hop maybe to like an AI tech sales, like a lot of those social media friendly type careers? Or maybe should you stay in what you majored in college, even though it doesn't have a high ceiling pay wise, given how expensive things are? What are your thoughts there, especially when you're talking to a younger version of yourself or folks that look like us?
Well, when I look at my career, it's definitely become something I never thought it would. I never thought I'd be a business owner. I never thought I'd be an author or a speaker. I used to sweat and clam up in boardrooms when people would ask me my thoughts around something. So I'm looking at my own career being like, I transitioned with where life was taking me.
For
I
sure.
also am a believer in God. I have a very strong
Amen.
faith. And so I don't believe anything was accidental. But when it comes to I get really annoyed when I go online and I see people, just selling the fact that you can become a coach or you can make six figures, you can become a multimillionaire by doing this and it starts with my
Right.
masterclass. It is very deceiving for individuals because
Yeah.
entrepreneurship is not easy. Jumping to a different industry is not easy. Doing
Mm-mm.
that in this economy is not easy. So, am I saying not to do it? Absolutely not. I'm saying to move wisely. So, make sure you have an emergency fund that will
True.
help you over the next, I used to say 6 months. Now I'm telling people a year. Make sure you have a year's worth of your expenses saved and all of that good stuff.
Mhm.
But just give yourself cushion for the unknown, right? Are you in a place where you're living paycheck to paycheck? I would say don't make that jump right now. Like
Right.
build up a cushion, build up your backing. You might be somebody that's responsible for others. So take inventory and move wisely. Do not just believe what you're hearing online or other people's feedback of entrepreneurship or transitions being quick and easy and immediately successful. That is not the reality for most people. So you have to have a certain level of um, acceptance for the unknown. And if you can feel comfortable doing that, and that's not for everybody, then yeah, bet on yourself. But also make sure you're being responsible on the back end so you're not, losing access to your livelihood and things that
Yeah.
matter. So,
Especially in today's time. I appreciate
yeah.
that. Anything you want to leave with the audience, maybe any quick career hacks, or I call it an elevator tip. We're all taking the stairs, but sometimes in life you get on the elevator and shoot up. Any final words you like to drop with the audience?
Final words. I was just having a conversation with a friend earlier today who has been unemployed for a year and 2 months.
Wow. Wow.
And when I asked her, what type of content are you taking in? What are you
Mm,
watching? What are you listening to?
mm,
Almost everything this individual was following or listening to was negative, was
yeah,
almost everything was very fear driven. So
yeah.
as she's had to navigate this time, she's moving in lack. She's moving in fear. She's moving in ways that are honestly killing her confidence, and she is
Mm,
equipped, right? So in this time of uncertainty, you still have the option to move in a way that's empowering for yourself. Surround yourself by individuals who want to see you win. Unfollow the accounts that are creating fear in you and follow accounts that are empowering. Take this time to really just think about your brand and where you're looking to go, optimize your LinkedIn. Even if you're not unemployed, always be thinking about positioning yourself well for the next opportunity. But we've got to be more, just thoughtful about
yeah.
what we're intaking, because that can make or break the way that you're moving in a time of uncertainty. But you have more power than you think.
That's so true, right? From music to conversations, your
Ah,
friends, it's so important. And
so
Davika,
true.
thank you so much. This has been amazing. Where can
Ooh.
people find you? How can they stay in contact? What's the best, I guess, platform, etc., that they should connect with you?
Well, I am a LinkedIn girl. I'm not really good on the other socials. So at
Okay,
Devika Brij Maurice and or DevikaBridge.com.
amazing. Thank you so much, Davika.
Thank you.